Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari
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 Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritta.
Narayanam Namaskritta.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudiriye.
Tato Jayamudiriye.
Astaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
I'll just recite the invocation prayers. Om Jnana
Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sangyam Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatra Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Okay, you can turn that. It's very beautiful. But we'll hear from Srila Prabhupada today. So I thought we might make a slight diversion from our originally intended plan and read from Srimad Bhagavatam today, if that's okay with everybody. And just concluding yesterday the very auspicious and holy month of Kartik. It's a very blessed month in which we, whatever devotional activities we perform, we get many returns on that. We're always looking for, right, highest return on investment. A little bit of effort, lots of results, right? That's always our goal. And so this Kartik month is a very glorious month. Many beautiful pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord take place, and we've been discussing them. But today I thought is an opportunity to glorify and to discuss an extraordinary personality. When we have a chance to hear about great personalities in spiritual life, it inspires us. Just like in any activity, in our professional careers or whatever, we're always looking for role models, people who have set a path ahead of us with great success that we try to emulate out of great respect and appreciation for what they have done. And also in our history, we study history to try to learn from it, to see what other great people have done, so that we can also try to embark on our own path of greatness. And so in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is chock full of stories of great personalities who have made and achieved perfection of life. How many of us are looking for perfection of life? All right, so nobody's not looking for it. I don't think anybody woke up today thinking, today I want to be unhappy. Anybody had that desire?
No.
It doesn't. Every day we wake up with the same goal. And that is how we can find this happiness, this peace of mind. Not only for ourselves, but for all those around us too. Our loved ones, ourselves. And we know it's, to some degree, it's an age-old quest. We've been searching at least for whatever number of years we've passed in this life, but in reality for many lifetimes. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, we see and hear about personalities who have achieved the ultimate perfection. And it serves as a great guide for us in our own pursuit of that perfection of life and happiness. So, many of you may be familiar or aware of some of the activities of the great Bhisma. Anybody has heard of Bhisma Dev? Bhisma Pita? Yeah. Grandfather Bhisma? Okay, so we all have heard. So yesterday concluded Bhisma Panchaka, the 5 days in which Bhisma Dev was fasting. And he was preparing for, what was he preparing for? Huh?
Leave his body.
Death. Death. Something we don't really so much enjoy discussing. But actually we see wise and intelligent persons understand it is a reality of life. As soon as one is born, death is certain to come. That is just a reality. We can try to bury our heads in the sand in defiance of that reality, or we can accept it and try to make the best of it. And what Bhisma Dev is going to show us in his activities is how one can perfect the process of leaving this world, actually, in which one can then unlock this perfection of peace and happiness that we all aspire for. So Bhisma Dev is a very glorious personality, but who's often misunderstood. And maybe some of his activities we draw questions to. For example, if he's such a great personality, why he fought on the side of Duryodhana and the Kauravas? If he's such a great personality and such a great devotee of the Lord, how is it that he could have fought so furiously to try to kill Arjuna, and even to the point of shooting arrows at Krishna himself? What kind of devotee of the Lord shoots arrows at the Lord? And so we sometimes wonder about some of these activities. But by hearing about them through our acharyas, we'll actually see what Bhishma Dev's mood and intent was in those activities. And it illustrates the greatness of his devotion to the Supreme Lord and the greatness of his surrender to the Lord. Okay. So we'll read one verse. This is from the first canto, 9th chapter. The chapter title is The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev. And this is the 22nd verse. And a little bit of setting the scene. So Bhishma Dev is now lying on the bed of arrows. We know how he acquired those arrows that he was lying on by the great bowman Arjuna. Right? And we know that these arrows, the tips of the arrows are facing down, which means what? That all those arrows pierced through his body and came out the other side and formed this bed upon which he is now lying. So we get some appreciation for the circumstance in which Bhishma Dev is speaking. You know, he's not lounging on a recliner or sitting in a beautiful forest setting with the rivers flowing and the trees providing wonderful shade. He's lying on a bed of arrows that have pierced his body. So he's in a bit of a precarious position. We'll see in this position how he responds and what his mind is like, showing us the power of devotional service. That when we take to the process of devotional service, yes, we're going to have trials and tribulations of our body, of the circumstances around us, things that upend our plans and give us so much upheaval of our sense of what I want to have happen. But in the midst of all that, but with the power of bhakti, one can find calmness through those difficulties and maintain their intelligence and their proper thought process to make good decisions, even through difficult circumstances. So Bhishma Dev, being in this very difficult circumstance, still shows extraordinary intelligence in what is to be done and what is not to be done. So Bhishma Dev lying on the bed of arrows, we know that he was blessed by his father with the benediction that he could choose when he will die. Now, only a great, great, great personality like Bhishma Dev could be responsible with such a benediction. Because the rest of us would probably figure out, all right, well, great, that means I'm immortal. Right? Who would choose? But Bhishma Dev understands that this material world, it is a lesser place compared to the spiritual realm. And so he was very systematically thinking about the time in which he could leave so that he could regain his eternal position in the spiritual world. Actually, we all come from the spiritual world. This is not our eternal home. We have chose to come here for some reasons, and we find it with this circumstance of all the ups and downs of life. But in the spiritual world, it is Vaikunta, free of misery. And so with a ticket available to him of reaching this place of free of misery, he is very intelligently selecting now that it is his time to leave. But again, this benediction in the hands of the uninformed, unintelligent, would be very dangerous. But Bhishma Dev, being a great devotee, is now going to exercise this right that he has. So when he does, in a couple of verses earlier from what I read, or what I will read, great, great personalities have reached and arrived on site here. And what personalities? I'll just read some of the great sages. It is a who's who of great sages. Who is here? Parvata Muni, Narada Muni, Domya, Vyasadeva, Bharadvaj, Parshuram, Vashishta, Indrapana, Trita, Asita, Gautama. And then another whole verse of several other Kashyapas here, Angirasas here, and so many great personalities. So what can we surmise from this? Bhishma Dev is no ordinary personality. why all these great sages would descend to Kurukshetra, the site of a great massacre, to watch Bhisma Pita leave his body. It must be knowing that this is not some ordinary event, and that Bhisma Dev is not some ordinary personality, but he's actually an extraordinary devotee of the Lord. So we get some indication of Bhisma Dev's position by simply who has come. And just like we know in wedding politics, who comes to the wedding is indicative of the position of both the bride and groom and their respective parents. Right? Who is the guests of honor? Well, in this case, the guests of honor are the greatest sages of the world, of the universe, have assembled here. And who else is assembled? Who else has come? Krishna himself. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has arrived at the site, at this Kurukshetra, and he has come with the Pandavas. Now, very interestingly, Bhisma Dev is on the process of dying. But Krishna has had Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas come in a very aristocratic way. Dressed very royally, coming with a little bit of pomp and circumstance. Ordinarily we think, is this the right place to have such circumstance? Someone is dying. It's not a time of celebration, showing off my royal garbs. But actually, Krishna had the Pandavas dress accordingly for the purpose of giving Bhisma Pita some relief. Because in his heart, he always wanted and knew that the Pandavas were the rightful rulers and that they should be the rulers. Though he fought on the side of the Kauravas, which we'll explain in a little bit why, he always knew. And so Krishna wanted to give Bhisma Pita some peace of mind, knowing that Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas have been rightly situated as kings now. And so thus he asked them to come in this very aristocratic way to give some happiness to Bhisma Dev in this time. So Krishna has come and he's going to ask Yudhishthira Maharaj to inquire from Bhisma Pita about what he should do, how he should rule. So here also we get another second extraordinary indication as to who is Bhisma Dev. In the presence of all these great sages, all these great minds, who is the person selected to speak and advise the Pandavas? So we get some understanding of the relative position of Bhisma Dev, that he is a very extraordinary devotee of the Lord. Otherwise, Krishna would have said, Bhisma Dev is otherwise preoccupied, not in a good condition. Why don't you inquire from so-and-so or somebody else, right? But to show the great position of Bhisma Dev, Krishna asks Yudhishthira Maharaj to inquire from Bhisma Dev. And Bhisma Dev teaches him and explains to him how to be an effective ruler, how to rule. So that's a little bit of the background. So I'll read this verse. And this verse is Bhisma Dev speaking about Krishna's arrival on site. Okay? I'll just read the Sanskrit and read the translation. Tatape ekanta bhutesh bhakteshu pashya bhaunupam kapitam yanme sum stitaha sakshat Krishno darshanam agataha. Translation. Yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. And this is Bhisma Pita speaking about Krishna's arrival. This is the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Lord, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, although equal to everyone, is still more inclined to his unflinching devotee, who is completely surrendered and knows no one else as his protector and master. Having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend, and master is the natural condition of eternal life. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The opposite tendency is the cause of fall down. The living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over the material world. The root cause of all troubles is this false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord in all circumstances. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhismaji is due to his being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. Arjuna had some bodily relationship with Krishna because the Lord happened to be his maternal cousin, but Bhisma had no such bodily relation. Therefore, the cause of attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet because the relation of the body is very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as the son of Maharaja Nanda, the son of Yashoda, the lover of Radharani. The affinity by bodily relation with the Lord is another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. Bhishma Deva is conscious of this sweetness of transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijaya Sakhi, Partha Sakhi, etc., exactly like Nanda Nandana and Yashoda Nandana. The best way to establish our relationship in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish this relationship directly. There must be a via medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. So let us discuss a few aspects of this very important purport. So another indication of Bhishma Deva's greatness is, and the ultimate indication, is Lord Krishna himself has come. And we see that Lord Krishna himself comes because he is very favorably inclined towards his devotees. He says he is equal to all. He doesn't disfavor anybody. But to his devotees, he is especially favorable. And one of his great favors he is showing to Bhishma Deva is by arriving here at this assembly in which he is preparing to leave the world. Now, a few things here that are very important in the purport. Prabhupada writes that a living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. And that is like the ego-shattering statement for us. Because actually we see we're always striving for independence, right? I want independence of some nation, I want financial independence, I want family independence, I want independence. But the reality is that we are always dependent on someone, something. Every breath we take on this earth, we're dependent on the presence of oxygen. Every food grain we eat, we are dependent on the presence of sunlight, waters, soils, the seeds to grow them. The littlest of things we have actually full dependence on. The reality is, because we are very limited, we have this dependent nature. But due to our false ego, we resist and we are trying to find this independence. And what it does is it leads us to this very difficult experience in the material world. As I mentioned, we started in the spiritual world. Why we ended up here? Because of this desire to exercise and try to be independent of the Lord. But in reality, it just doesn't work. And just as much as my hand, if it tries to be independent of the body, what success it will have? If it tries to enjoy some rasgullas and gulab jamuns on its own, it cannot enjoy. But if the hand puts the gulab jamuns in the mouth and enters the stomach, then the whole of the body can enjoy. But independently, there is no existence. My hand disconnected from the body has no function, but connected to the body has a great function. So similarly, we as part of the Supreme Lord, we also have a great function in relationship with the Lord. So this dependence on the Lord is the key to to actually finding this eternal peace and happiness that we look for. And so Bhisma Dev has understood this perfectly. And so he has understood that when Krishna says in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the chapter title is Attaining the Supreme. How to find the Supreme. The first challenge we have is defining what is supreme. If we think back in the history of our life, from when we were a child, what was our definition of perfection? The ultimate. Having a bag full of chocolates, maybe? Right? That would be the best. As we grew up, perfection would be, having a BMW. And then as we grow up even further, perfection of life might be, having a really, strong family. And like this, we keep redefining perfection, that supreme goal. But actually we have one supreme goal, one eternal supreme goal. And that is to reconnect with our eternal Father, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And so Krishna says, to do that, Antakale chamameva smana muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati yastata samshaya. He says, if you remember me at the time of death, you will come back to me. Of this there is no doubt. But then he says in the very next verse, yam yam vapi smaram bhavam. He says, whatever you think about at the time of leaving your body, you'll achieve. So if you think of your neighbor, your dog, your friend, whatever it is, that is where you're going to go next. But if you think of the Supreme Lord, then you are assured destination there. So Bhisma Dev is very, very fortunate because he gets to choose the timing of his departure, and he has the Supreme Lord there in his presence, assuring him that he will be able to think of the Lord upon leaving this world. And that's exactly what happens, is explained at the end of the chapter. He is glorifying the Supreme Lord, meditating on him, and is able to leave his body very beautifully and thus attain the eternal world. So now, let's come back to Bhisma Dev's position and situation. Why he fought on the side of the Kauravas. Why he took that position. So externally we see, and it's explained, that out of a sense of duty, because Duryodhana was maintaining Bhishma Pita and others, he had a sense of responsibility to fight on his side. But actually that is only an external reason. There is a much more important reason why Bhishma Dev decided to fight on the side of the Kauravas. Bhishma Dev was the greatest warrior on the planet. He was personally trained by Parshuram, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So he was extremely skilled. So he chose to fight on the side of the Kauravas to prove one point, that Krishna can never be defeated. He says, I am the great warrior, and I will show that I will be defeated by Krishna and his army. Because if he fought on the side of the Pandavas, people would suggest, well, Krishna won because of Bhishma Dev's support. So this is the mood of a devotee. Bhishma Dev was willing to take the criticism, the critique of his character, that he joined the unrighteous Kauravas. He didn't care about his reputation. He cared about making sure everybody understood Krishna was the supreme. That is the mood of a devotee. That they forgo all of their own for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So that is why he fought on the side of the Kauravas. Now why, when Duryodhana incited him, suggesting that he wasn't fighting valiantly, that he was showing favoritism to the Pandavas, why did he make this very strong vow that I'm going to kill Arjuna or make Krishna break his vow of not picking up a weapon? Why he would do such a thing? Why did he have to, perform? If he's such a surrendered devotee to the Lord, why he would do that? Because Bhisma Dev wanted to show one of the extraordinary qualities of the Supreme Lord. Krishna loves all of his children, his devotees, so much that Bhisma Dev wanted to show that to protect his dear devotee Arjuna, Krishna was willing to break even his own word. Krishna was willing to be called a liar for the protection of his devotee. And for that reason, Bhisma Dev wanted to show the extraordinary love that Krishna has for his devotees. That even he's willing to break his own word and his own vow for their protection. Now, interestingly, Krishna could have simply put a shield around Arjuna, and he would have been protected. Or with all the arrows coming at Arjuna, he could have simply went and they all would have flew away. So why did he pick up a weapon? Why did he pick up a weapon and charge at Bhisma Dev? Because Krishna also wanted to uphold the word of his pure devotee. Bhisma Dev made a vow, and Krishna was willing to, again, forego his own vow to uphold the vow of his devotee. When Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, he says, you abandon everything and surrender unto me. We should understand that this is a two-way street. When Krishna tells his devotees to surrender to him, actually Krishna loves to surrender to his devotees. So Krishna here is surrendering his own word to uphold the word of his devotee. That is how much love the Supreme Lord has for all of us. He is uncompromising in his love. So Krishna, in response to Bhisma Dev's tactic to establish the supremacy of Krishna, he also heightens the position of Bhisma Dev, showing that for the great Bhisma Dev, I am even willing to sacrifice my own word to uphold his word. And so he went and he charged at Krishna with a wheel. And as soon as Bhisma Dev saw Krishna charging, he stopped firing his arrows. Because he wanted to see actually this very beautiful mood of Krishna and this mood of anger. See, when Krishna is fighting the demons, we see all the demons, Bhutana and Chanarvata and Shakatasura and all that. He doesn't get any, emotional energy. There's just play. But Krishna also likes to experience this rasa, this emotion of fighting. So only his devotees can evoke that. And so Bhisma Dev also plays his role to give Krishna the opportunity for this experience. So the position of Bhisma Dev is unequivocal. He is one of the great devotees. He is one of the 12 Mahajans. There are 12 great propagators of devotional life who are meant to serve as guides for us in our practice of devotional service. And Bhisma Dev is one of those 12. And the activities he performed, we can see. Sometimes when we observe from afar or on an uninformed basis, we may draw some faulty conclusions or some misconceptions. Oh, he was fighting on the side of the Kauravas because he was focused on where his next paycheck might come. Some might suggest such things. Or he was making a vow to kill Arjuna out of fit of anger and uncontrolled intelligence. Things like this we might start to draw. But actually we see that every action Bhisma Dev took was an activity to glorify the Supreme Lord and to glorify his associates. And that is the mood of the devotee, is how to give glory to the Supreme Lord. And what is the goal of Krishna? To give glory to his devotees. Why Krishna had Arjuna fight the war of Kurukshetra? To simply give him the credit for being the valiant warrior. Krishna could have destroyed all of them with just a blink of the eye, but he wanted his devotee to get the credit. And this is the mutual loving relationship that exists. But to obtain this relationship, Srila Prabhupada guides us at the end of this purport. He says, one should not try to establish the relation directly. There must be a via medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. To have success in anything, we need a teacher. We need someone who can guide us, and that is the Guru. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvini paripatena pariprashnena sevayam upakdekshanti teganam jnaninas tatadarshina. He says, if you want to know the real truth, have real knowledge, then you must approach a bona fide spiritual master and inquire from them. And if you do, then you'll see the truth. Why? Because they themselves have seen the truth. If someone knows the absolute truth, they can then share it with everybody else. And so this is the means. Because otherwise, like in evaluating Bhisma Dev's activities, we'll become confused. We'll see one thing and conclude the exact opposite of reality. But by the mercy of the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada is providing us these wonderful purports to explain exactly how to understand all of these activities and how to draw the right inspiration from the great personalities like Bhisma Dev, so that we can make progress in our relationship with the Supreme Lord. Because without our relationship with Krishna, actually we'll never find the peace and happiness we search for. The natural constitutional position of the soul, its intrinsic nature, is to be in loving relationship with the Lord. Just like a fish's nature is to be in water. If you pull the fish out of water, no matter how much money you give it, no matter how much wonderful foodstuffs you give it, no matter how beautiful music you play for it, is it going to be happy sitting on the beach? Why? Because it's not in its natural position. Similarly, our natural, innate position is to be in loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. Anything but that will give us the experience of the fish out of water, a very agitated state. And it is why we find this constant ups and downs in the material world. Because we are trying to find our experience in life separate from our natural position. Like a fish trying to find a comfortable home on a beach chair on a beautiful beach. It won't happen. But as soon as you return that fish to water, it finds its natural state. Similarly, when we reawaken our relationship with the Supreme Lord, then we find the actual peace and happiness we're searching for. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na Shotati na Kankshati. He says, when you realize that this soul is connected to the Supreme Lord in this loving relationship, few things happen. One immediately becomes joyful, becomes happy. This is not about having to wait till some next life, but one actually can experience it immediately. Nashotati nakankshati. No more lamenting, no more hankering, no more I wish this, I want that. Everything one wants is fully achieved. No more lamenting, no more hankering. How great would life be if we had no more lamentation and no more hankering, but everything was. And then he says, Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. One becomes the well-wisher of everybody, has no enemies, makes friends with everyone. That is the result of realizing the self in relation to the Lord. And this is what Bhisma Pitta has realized in perfection. And so at the end of his life, he has prayed intensely to have the fortune of being able to meditate on the Supreme Lord as he is departing from this world. And when he does, he returns back to the spiritual world and regains his eternal identity. And so by this pastime, we can learn many things, including the perfection of leaving this world, the perfection of devotional service, the activities of the devotee in glorification of the Lord, and the activities of the Lord in glorification of his devotees. And so this is the passing away of Bhisma Dev. It's a beautiful chapter, chapter 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a fairly easy read. If anybody would like to read more, there's a lot of other details that are given in this pastime, but just a short summary of the glories of Bhisma Dev. Okay? So I'll take any questions or comments or discussion. Any reactions, questions?
Prabhu, because we are part and parcel of Lord Krishna, that's why we like to go back.
That's why what?
That's why we like to go to Krishna. I mean, in spiritual world.
A child always ultimately wants to be reconnected with mother and father. And they may rebel for some time, run away thinking life is better outside of this home. But in reality, that is an immature decision. So similarly, we have made that same decision, but no problem. Like any loving mother and father, as soon as child has any desire to return home, they welcome with open arms. So similarly, Krishna says, we take one step to him, he takes 1,000 steps to us. Whatever eagerness we have, he actually has much, much more. And when we awaken that relationship, we see that everything becomes, very sublime and sweet and understandable. And the spiritual world, the beauty of the spiritual world is that in the spiritual world, one can have uninterrupted service with the Lord. See, the relationship with God is of love. Sometimes we think in spirituality, relationship with God is of fear. Fear is not the complete relationship. Just like a child. If a child only feared his father, is that a healthy relationship? We can come to the level of respect. If a child has some fear and only respects in adoration father, is it complete? It's a little more complete. But that relationship is complete when there is love. That is the completeness. So the same with us in the Supreme Lord. Our relationship with him is out of love. And how is love expressed? Through service. If I love my mother, I can tell her I love her. But a more powerful way to show my love is to render some service to her. So service is an expression of our love. And that is what bhakti is. Bhakti is devotional service, an expression of our love to the Supreme Lord. And when we understand that, everything becomes sublime. And in the spiritual world, the benefit is one can render service unlimitedly. We get tired, the knees hurt, the back hurts, we run out of things. We have limited ability. But in the spiritual world, there is no limit. Everything is perfect. So that is the reason the devotee wants to go back to the spiritual world, so they can engage in loving service unencumbered by all the limitations of this material world. Any other questions, comments?
Question.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danod Pranam. I have a question about Bhisma Pitta. When Draupadi was getting disrobed, is there any reason why Bhisma Pitta not act against the Kauravas?
There's a few different dynamics. Srila Prabhupada talks a little bit about this in the in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita in the purports. But ultimately, you know, Bhishma Dev is taking this long-term action of establishing Krishna as the supreme. And so, who came to save Draupadi?
Krishna himself.
Again, if Bhishma Pita stops the disrobing, when we lose the great lesson of showing who is ultimately our savior,
Krishna.
is Krishna in all circumstances. Krishna is our ultimate savior, an ultimate source of protection. And so by standing quiet, that pastime unfolds, establishing again who is the ultimate protector. Okay. Any other comments or questions, reactions about this or anything? It's a quiet group today.
Can I ask a related question to
Yeah.
what she has said?
Yeah.
So as of today, I know that you are talking about Bhishma Pitama, but if you see some injustice happening to anybody,
Mhm.
should you wait for Krishna Dev to come to help them? What's your role?
Yeah, so the question is, if we see some injustice, what's our role? What should we do? Should we say, hey, Krishna is the supreme witness, supreme judge, supreme controller, let him deal with it? So that is, one take. So there's a few things that we should understand. When someone is in need, we have to do our part to help. That is our responsibility out of the basic intrinsic human nature. At least if we have some good nature and good culture, we'll know that, we have to do our part to help. We should also understand that we may be limited in our ability. We may not be successful in our endeavor and attempt. We should do the best that we can with the situation that we have. But ultimately, we have to surrender to Krishna's supreme will. And so, the doctor goes in and tries to perform a life-saving operation to the best of their ability, but at the end of the day, it is ultimately in the hands of Krishna. If they sit idle and say, well, it's in the hands of Krishna, let him do the operation, that is not fine. Krishna says, you do your part. I will do my part. You need both. Our determination, our part, but also recognizing at the end, it is ultimately up to Krishna as what's going to happen. Right? So we should do our part to help all those around us. And we should be very broad-minded in who we are helping. We often choose, friends and enemies, or those that we love to those at least we don't care about. But actually, if we understand that every spirit soul is the son of Krishna, the daughter of Krishna, then we are all connected in this familial family relationship. Not just us, but even the birds and the trees and all living entities. And so our compassion should be very broad and very far encompassing. But recognize, our position there. When it comes to injustice, just one additional comment I'll make. We should have some comfort in understanding, and we do this seminar where we talk about why bad things happen to good people. And it's a really, troubling question that if we don't have a very good answer for, can really lead us to lots of, confusion, and sometimes lead us to even, doubt the presence of God. If God was there, bad things wouldn't happen to good people. So we have to have some faith in the laws of karma. Every action we do, it generates an equal and opposite reaction. Never too much, never too little. Exact, equal, and opposite reaction. When that reaction comes, we don't know. But as soon as I slap somebody, that slap is coming back. Tomorrow, next life, it's coming back. So, when I get slapped, I have nobody else to blame. But not even that person who comes and slap me. They're simply the postman, the deliverer of my karma. They're simply the deliverer of my karma. So with this understanding, when somebody is suffering some, difficulty, we can actually apply a better solution. And the better solution is, that's just your karma, deal with it. That's not the better solution. The better solution is how we can help them understand how to stop creating more karmic reactions that are going to lead to more future suffering, and engage them in this process of devotional life, which will alleviate. Because Krishna says, Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. I will deliver you from all your sinful reactions. Simply by Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Then he says, Ma suchaha, do not fear. Do not fear, my child. So ultimately, that is the best way to free somebody from whatever tragic circumstances they are in. But in the immediate cause, yes, we should try to help. So, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I remember one time you were talking that somebody asked why can't we eat the meat? And Prabhu was giving an example that you can eat, but like Prabhu, you said that in the next life, I'm gonna give the same right, what I'm gonna do to this life. So, and this what I was actually with the one Filipino girl, we were celebrating her birthday and we were eating at the same table, and I happened to tell that, and then she was like, get up off the table right away.
Yeah. Sometimes the
karma will come back, will haunt you all the time, whatever you do.
Sometimes the truth hurts. That's just a reality, right? So, sometimes we have to give the message in dosages that are tolerable and palatable, so that we don't, push people away. But ultimately, that is the reality. You're 100% right. We try to share knowledge in a way that's, again, palatable, so that one can understand the nature of the decisions we make. We make so many decisions every day, not really thinking about the broad implications of those decisions. We just go through it. Why? I don't know. My neighbor's doing it, so I should do it. And, we've been gifted with this intelligence. Krishna says we should use our intelligence to really be discerning. What is good for me? What is bad for me? And then act. And that's what this Bhagavad Gita is. This Bhagavad Gita it's an amazing set of 700 verses that teach us how to make good decisions in all circumstances of life. It's such a powerful set of instructions, and it's broad-based. It applies in everything we might encounter. And it teaches us how to make good decisions. But we have to utilize the intelligence we have, first to take to the study, and then two, to apply it. So it's always
Can you
going to be
explain about the cover photo, Prabhu, and the Gita? The cover photo itself, what does it mean?
The cover itself is exactly showing what Bhisma Pita was trying to show, which is what position Krishna has taken in this picture, which you all know, even if you can't see it. What position in the battlefield has Krishna taken?
Charioteer.
Now in society, again, using our judgmental lens, where do we rank taxi driver in the rank of careers? Very high profession. But Krishna took this position surrendering his own prestige and honor and glamour. Why? For the love of his devotee. That's how much Krishna renounces for his devotee. That is why he is one of his opulences is renunciation. So it shows the extent of Krishna's love for his devotees. He's willing to do anything. And his devotee is willing to do anything for Krishna. That's real love. Unmotivated. So that's the cover of the Bhagavad Gita.
And those horses probably what like this symbolize what?
Not necessarily these horses. Krishna's chariot has 4 horses, but the horses I think you're referring to is the picture that exists in the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about the interaction of the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. In this picture here. So, sometimes we wonder about the senses and the mind and the intelligence, and ultimately me as spirit soul, how they all interact. So this picture diagram illustrates this in a very powerful way, which tells us that, if you're on a chariot, a horse-drawn chariot, and you're driving on a road, and you imagine you're on an embankment, and on one side is a ditch, the other side is a ditch. What do you want to make sure as a passenger? The chariot stays straight, right? So, like that, we're on this journey of life, down this road. But sometimes we end up in the ditch. We end up in difficulties, setbacks. Why? And other times we stay pretty firm on the road. So 2 things. One, we have to define where it is that we're going. That's for another topic. But how this chariot moves. Well, the senses are like the horses. The eyes, the ears, they pull us to so many different things. I want to see this, I want to hear this, I want to taste that. And they pull us. Well, the horses, if they're let to run wild, what happens to the chariot? So a good chariot has the horses bound by ropes, right? By the reins, they're called. Well, that is our mind. Our mind is what ultimately provides some control to the senses. But if the reins and the horses are just flapping in the wind, and there's no driver holding on to them, what happens to the chariot? Back into the ditch. They may all go together, but they're going into the ditch. So what is the driver? The driver is the intelligence. The intelligence controls the mind, the reins. And the mind controls the senses. If those 3 are working in unison, then the chariot proceeds very nicely on the road. So similarly in our life, if we just let the senses do whatever they want, eating what they want, seeing what they want, tasting what they want, hearing what they want, that is no different than letting the horses of this chariot run wild. If the intelligence is not there to say no at times, we know all of our senses at times we've had ideas to do this or that. We know in our heart it's wrong, but we still do it. What is that indicative of? It's indicative of the driver losing hold of those ropes and letting the mind and the senses dictate action. And when we do, ditch. But if we strengthen the intelligence, the driver becomes very strong, he never lets go of those ropes, then success. So we have to acquire intelligence to know what is good for me, what is bad for me. So that when the mind chirps up with these ideas, the intelligence says, shh, no, not good for us. Keep going. And if we do, then we'll find success in our journey of life. And so that is what, because spirituality is not about stopping the horses, stopping the senses. Okay, I'm not going to see anything, I'm not going to hear anything, plug my nose. No, that's not. Spirituality is about how to use these senses in a positive way, engaging them, just like how to engage the horses in the right goal and not letting them run wild. Similarly, Spirituality is through intelligence, utilizing the mind and senses for a productive means. And that's why Krishna says in the 6th chapter, the mind is either the friend or the greatest of enemies. When it is controlled, it's the greatest of friends. And when it's uncontrolled, watch out. And that's what that diagram helps us understand, the interrelation between the soul, the mind, the senses, and the intelligence. Anything else?
It's a very interesting topic, Prabhu. To be honest. Because like I'm always seeing the negativity around us, so my mind is also thinking that way. What is wrong here? What is wrong there? So same way, like when we are talking about Bhisma Dev. So I'm just thinking like whatever little knowledge I have about him, about his character, what he did. So sometimes I'm finding like even though he was fighting for Kauravas, but still I am seeing his loyalty was towards Pandavas. So he was neither loyal to Kaurav, neither loyal to Pandav. I'm like this kind of behavior or character. So how we can tell him, how we can assume like he was like a great warrior or a great personality on that time. So what was the reason, like behind it, why he was doing that?
Yeah.
And like to prove like, okay, God is supreme, nobody can do anything without his will. He did that much sacrifice that he saw, okay, the Draupadi Chiraran was happening and he was kept quiet. And to demonstrate that he was, if suppose he would have stopped that incident, so nothing can happen. So just to demonstrate like God is supreme, he was ready for the war, and then millions people died. So like one way he is doing that thing, another way like he is not loyal to anyone. So I just wanted to understand like how we can explain these things.
So remember, his loyalty was to one. And that was to Krishna. And everything he did, his loyalty was to the Supreme Lord. And so he, again, took the side of the Kauravas to glorify the position of the Supreme Lord, showing that, again, the Lord is never defeatable. He, made Krishna pick up the weapon again to show. But he knows he can't make Krishna do anything. Ultimately, Bhisma Dev knows he's playing a part in Krishna's pastimes. Right? So, Krishna has very deep and intertwined purposes for everything he does. There are many layers of reasons why he does certain things and other things. Right? And so Bhisma Pita, being a great devotee of the Lord, is playing a very instrumental role in helping to affect ultimately Krishna's objective. Because what Krishna's objective was in the whole of the Mahabharata was to reduce the burden of earth, of these evil forces. Right? Mother Bhumi approaches Krishna with all the demigods and Lord Brahma and begs, please help me. I'm becoming overrun by these, unscrupulous kings. Not just the Kauravas, but much broader than that. Right? So that was Krishna's purpose. So we see Pratyanaya Sadhanam Vinashaya Tadushkatam. To take away all the dushkatis, all the miscreants. But he can actually take away the miscreants by just, again, the blink of the eye. He doesn't need to come and do that. Well, Is he coming for Dharma Stamstra Pranakaya? To reestablish? He could send any great acharya and they could come and establish all the Shastras. So really what he is coming for? It is to engage and enjoy with his devotees. So he performs these pastimes and different pastimes, and he engages his devotees in those pastimes as well. And this is one such pastime. But again, many times the purport, the analysis is very intricate in detail. So Bhisma Dev, he's not neutral, actually. He's fully surrendered to Krishna as his loving servant. And so in that, he takes this position, but his heart is always there as one. And, sometimes we wonder why Krishna had to, create all this violence and massacre. And Krishna did not need to create any of that. The need was created by the free will we all choose. What I mean by that, I just talked about karma. Why there is so much difficulty in the world. Why there's so much difficulty? They are simply reactions to all the activities that are taking place. If you want to know why there's so much difficulty, just look at how much bad activity is taking place. How many billions of animals are being slaughtered every day? How many babies are being killed in the womb of a mother? How much, intoxication is taking place in so many illicit activities? When you look at the prevalence of all of this, then we see all the difficulties we see around us is simply reactions to all of that. So Krishna is not to blame for the eradication of all these evil. That is simply a reaction to the activities before. So plays this role, and it happens. And our opportunity is to stop this cycle of sinful life and reactions, sinful life and reactions, sinful life and reactions. Then we'll actually find a better existence in this world. We see so much. I was just seeing this, new bill passed by Biden about climate change. We talk about cleaning the environment. We'll not clean the environment until we clean the environment of our heart. Until we clean this environment, the Mother Earth will not, unfortunately, be cleansed. Eliminating the greed, the passion that exists within the heart, then we have some hope for eradicating, the dangerous, activities in the world that are damaging Earth. So this is the means for that. Anyways, a little bit beyond your question. Thank you. Okay. There we go. All right, well, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Koti Vaishnava Vrinda.